Okay, everybody, I'm super excited today because, well, first of all, welcome to the Bye Bitches podcast. I don't know how many different ways I can say bye bitches, but we're okay. Today we're talking about Survivor Australian Outback, the second season, of the iconic show where, here we talk about nostalgic things. And actually, even though CG, you were only like 1 year old, you're more the expert. And I'm just seeing this pretty much for the first time because we have a very special guest today, Kimmi Kappenberg. And on Survivor Australian Outback, Kimmi, she's known for her lively personality and being a water provider. She's a lover of chickens and for not sacrificing her vegetarian morals by eating cow brain. Oh, she came back with the win when she ate mangrove worm. 23 years later, this time survivor, biker, and mom, Kimmi, is here to guide us as we dive into season 2 of Survivor Australian Outback. Hi, Kimmi. Thanks for being here.
Hi. How are you guys? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. I mean, I'm like, as my mom said, I've seen all the seasons, so I'm fangirling a little bit. Like,
oh, that's awesome.
You were definitely one of my favorite people in the second season. So thank you so much for being here.
Awesome. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yes. And shout out to Kelly. We had such a fun time talking with Kelly, and she was like, I will reach out to Kimmi. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah. She texted me at like 7:00 in the morning one time. I'm like, are you on the West Coast right now? Yeah. That's usually where she was, but she happened to be visiting family on the East Coast. So I was like, okay, not horrified.
Oh, yeah. We talked to her. She was in North Carolina or something visiting family. And
it's really, really. So like I said, we love to, discuss nostalgia and the impact of shows that were just groundbreaking and changing. And, we just did season 1 and I kept saying over and over again that this was the highest rated. And then I get to season 2 and I realize I was wrong. This is the highest rated Survivor season of all time, isn't it?
Yeah. So our season, I think they may have their finale may have been one of the highest rated at the time. But our first episode aired right after the Super Bowl. And because of all the hype with like the finale of the first season, like people were like, okay, those that hadn't even checked that out were checking ours out. And then, so we had a lot of people that knew who we were.
Well, and as Kelly was saying, they were shooting, it was almost like an independent movie. They had no idea what the impact would be. And, just knowing that we were at the same time, having 8 million people watch a show was considered great. And you guys were averaging 28, 30, 51 for the finale.
Yep.
It's a huge, huge thing. And it's not necessarily the first reality, but it's the first reality for it that in the US that literally changed television for history in history forever, because those kinds of numbers, it's a business. They're making money. CBS was like, whoa, we're throwing a lot more money into this reality thing. And now today, of course, even with the strike, the fall schedule is going to be even more reality. Yeah. I mean, from the humble beginnings of like what you guys did, it's just blossomed into, it's just like must be $1 billion, multi-billion dollar.
I'm sure it is. Am I allowed to mention any TV show names or no?
You can.
Reality.
You can say whatever you want.
You're not a part of SAG. You can say whatever you want.
You can say whatever
I can say whatever I want too.
I just might go,
keep her mouth shut a little bit, but we can say whatever we want.
Great. Well, because one of the things was on my season, the second season, we were doing so well in the ratings. And this is when we were airing on Thursdays. We were beating out Friends in ratings. Wow. And you have to understand, for their 30-minute program, you had major stars that were getting $1 million an episode. Mm-hmm. And then you had your hair, your wardrobe, your makeup people, your set design, all of those people. So one episode is costing $10 million.
The overhead. Above the line.
Yeah. And now we were an hour-long TV show. You're not paying us. I mean, altogether for all of, the contestants, it's $1.5 million in prize money or less that's being divvied up between everybody. So you don't have the script writers, the set design. Yes, you still have production, but I mean, it was pretty cheap to go schlep everybody to a third world country and still make a lot of money.
You have a production background, do you not?
Yes. Yeah. I did TV and commercial production, and it was really interesting to see, in such a major setup, how it really varied.
Oh my God, that wasn't even one of my questions, but I think it's so cool to see that you coming from, because you produce commercials, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And and what it's like. It's, especially commercials are fast. They're like mini movies and you do them in just a few weeks, and it's,
yep.
But then when you see how production, like what was your take on how they were, just basically pointing and shooting kind of in a documentary style, I would imagine, correct?
Yes. And it was very funny because when we were out there, there'd be, a camera guy, somebody doing interviews, and somebody doing the boom and stuff for your audio and whatnot. And they might follow you around. And then, you get your wide shots and your close-ups, and you have people that were there. And then for challenges, you'd have a couple more crews. So I played the second season in Australia, which was it was a new beginning for them. Well, when I played 15 years later, it was 3 times the amount of people, because then you had people on drones, you had people on every angle, and I was just like, dang, they got some more money in their budget.
Right. I was always shocked, nowadays you see in reality, because you see everybody wearing mics. But you guys get the boom operators are so great that you never had to wear mics, right?
We did have mics on challenges and stuff when they couldn't be near us. Oh. So if you look in our backs, there was always something somewhere, and it was pins. We'd have to pull it up our shirts and stuff. Because,
even in the second season.
Because if we were far away, they didn't do it as much. But you figure, like, if we're strategizing at, at one of the, oh my gosh, I think when we were getting ready to do a challenge, like we're standing
there, huddle up.
Exactly. I mean, when you're getting ready to go, if they don't have somebody right there, they're not hearing any kind of juicy gossip that, could pertain to gameplay down the road. Right. And they want to be a part of everything. Like if you're out there, like Wigglesworth and I, we were sitting there, we were talking on the beach one day, and it's like, okay, we're being really, really quiet. Next thing you know, you're getting thumped in the head with a microphone because they want to hear what you're saying.
Oh, and how long do you think you adapted a little bit? How was that with cameras in your face? I think people who always fantasize about what would it be like to be on a reality show, like, did you forget about them quickly, or was it still somewhat?
I definitely was able to overlook it because they weren't always like in your face, because like I said, they did have the boom, and I think that there were microphones around camp for different things, so that way they could not be right on top of you. But if you were walking with people, there was somebody right behind you with the boom over your head trying to get everything, because that was fast paced and stuff, and we didn't have microphones on us while we were at camp.
What was the biggest difference? Like the first season, obviously there were probably only 2, 3, maybe 4 people around camp recording. Was it like a big jump in production at camp from season 2 to 31, or was it about the same following you with the mics? And
it was about the same, because they kept that very simple. And that's why I think that there were more microphones like hidden in our shelter and where we would always kind of hang out more. So they didn't have to be quite up, sitting on your lap, so to speak. Right. But, they tried to just blend in the background a little bit more, and that's what they did. But, that there was maybe 1 or 2, maybe 2 crews at each camp when we first got there, because you had more people, and then as it dwindles down, you don't need as many because right. We're not doing anything.
So I want to ask about the very beginning. Kelly said that her mom brought her a flyer, and that's how season 1, like that's how they did casting. So how did you decide you wanted to do it? What was the casting process like? Was it a little more formal after the first season?
Well, I wanted to apply for the first season, and there was I was from Long Island, and in the Newsday newspaper and the entertainment section, it said, "Hey, we're casting for, this the CBS show is doing this, and we're casting for it." And I was like, "Oh heck yeah, I want to go. I want to go have some fun." And my boyfriend at the time was like, "You're not going to leave me for 2 months and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Well, I'll think about it, And then they had casted and done everything. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to apply for this anyway. And back then, we were making VHS tapes. Okay. That's how long ago this was. But my production background came in handy because I was able to edit this great piece in 3 minutes. Like my boss, I was out in the Hamptons wearing high heels, and I had a backpack, and I made a big sign that said Australia or bust. Right. And that's how you saw me walking down the highway in the Hamptons with that big sign. And that was my opening shot for my videotape. So they clearly knew right away I was not shy, and that makes for good TV. And then I was able to go and talk. And
they sent you you had to go to LA actually and meet them.
Well, first we did an interview. They did, I think 100 people in major cities, and I went to New York. Oh. And I was upstairs. I did my interview. They told me the interview would take about 10 minutes. I was there for an hour. And then they said, "Okay, we'll call you, if we want you." And by the time I walked downstairs, 24-story building, got down in there into the lobby, and the guy was like, "Hey, are you Kimmi?" And I'm like, "Yes." And they called me up and they said, "Go have your medical done. Go do this. We want to fly you out to LA to be one of the 50.
That is so it was like immediate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. I mean, that's happened to me once. That happened to me once on. Oh, bleep it.
Hey,
bleep it.
Watch it. Watch yourself.
My editor will bleep that.
No, but to you on a television
show. But it's great. Well, you walk in, there's like 20 people, and then they're like, "Everyone but you can leave," and I'm like, "What? Yay!" But that I love that story. But what is it about you that because reality probably wasn't like, it wasn't in our living rooms in 2000, 2001 so much, but what was it that I want to know about you and your background that made you say, "I want to go," what was it? Survive on an island, or I guess it's Australia.
The Outback. Yeah.
Like what was it that just caught your eye, that are you adventuresome? Are you an outdoors person? Like, what is it?
I always went to summer camp. Like when I was younger, I was an avid reader. So I would read, all these things about summer camp loves and, summer camp mysteries. And so I had told my mom when I was younger, I said, "Look, I want to go away to summer camp. It has to have horses, it has to have boys, and it has to be sleepaway." So
and she was like, "Yes, no, let's go."
Yeah, go. So next thing you know, for 5 summers, I was up in Watkins Glen, upstate New York, and I was going sometimes for 6 weeks at a time to summer camp just because I loved the adventure. Oh, I loved the fun. So when this opportunity came along, I was like, all right, well, let me go and have another adventure. And I was like, oh, it's going to start getting cold in New York at that time, maybe when they're filming. Let me go be warm. Let me go have fun.
Oh, smart.
But no, I wasn't smart because I never once thought, well, let's go win $1 million. I did not think of that for the first one.
So did you watch the first season?
I did. I did.
Because, okay, so one of the things that we were discovering is that the first season, because we're trying to hopefully we're nostalgic for people who love the show, but maybe introducing it to CG's generation who hasn't seen the show, because that first season is unlike any other because everybody knows that it's a game now. Some people went in just thinking, like you said, "I'm just going to go have fun and survive." Uh-huh. And Richard Hatch went in and said, "This is a game. I'm going to create an alliance," and which is the way it's always played now. So you didn't have that was not your plan going in. You just went.
I just wanted to go and have fun. It was like, okay, it's a free trip to Australia. I'm going to go and when am I going to have this opportunity to go and do that, on someone else's dime? And all right, let me just go. And that's what I did. I'm not very good at strategies.
Well, even in the second season, you can see that like alliances aren't formed like right away. I think the first alliance that was formed at all was like Alicia and Jeff Farner. And it was like not even really like one. Like the second season, it still seemed like a lot of people there were like going to have fun. Like there was some strategy with it, but because it was still starting off. It did still seem like, the wanting to have fun. And that's why I would do it. I would want it like free trip to Australia. Why not?
Exactly. Because Australia is very expensive to go fly to. And, so it's like, okay, well, I'm going to go for a couple months or 6-8 weeks. Yeah.
Well, you just mentioned flying, and you guys, I mean, I think they try to make every opening somewhat unique, and you guys open on this this military plane coming in, and it's silence and you're not allowed to talk, and Jeff is speaking and all that. Like, what was that experience? Just like that whole opening beginning, and then you have to do this long hike.
So that was once all of us got selected in LA to go, we all went around the country. We were flown to different places to go learn how to skydive. Because originally we were supposed to skydive into Australia.
You're kidding.
No.
By yourselves.
Yes. But then I guess it became too much of a liability. So actually my skydive school was like somewhere in Northern California. So I flew up there, and I'm at the airport getting in a cab, and they're like, "Where are you going?" And I go into this like tumbleweed town in the middle of nowhere. And it's like, "What are you doing here?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm coming to skydive." And they're like, "Oh, that's too bad. Somebody was just killed up here like a couple weeks ago, Scott." And I'm sitting there, and I was like, I'm like, I can't do this. Like,
you're like, I signed up for fun, not to die.
Right. Like, I was really freaking out. And then, I mean, I think the day that I was supposed to start my classes, which was like the next day, they were like, "Nope. We all got phone calls," and some people had already jumped out of planes.
Wow.
But I had not, because they were like, it's way too much of a liability. And also you figure you have 16 people going in. What if one or two of them on landing broke their ankles? You know what I mean? Like it ruins the show.
Right.
So that was our original plan. But, I liked it better that we were just in a military plane. I mean, the most magnificent thing, I was very lucky because I was at the end of the plane and they had it opened up, and you're looking down, and I am looking down at clouds. Like, you feel like you can touch them because, I mean, Jeff is sitting right there on the edge of the plane, and it's an experience that I still remember over 20 years later because it was just that magnificent.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Enjoying that journey, being in the moment.
Yes.
You
Yes.
seem like somebody that you live in the moment and really savor that. That's
so you said that you've always been adventurous and you went into this experience, looking for fun. What was the hardest aspect of actually having to survive? Because it's not, regular camping. Was it the hunger? Was it the weather? Like, what was the most difficult thing for you?
The most difficult thing was definitely the people. And because if you have somebody, your buddy, somebody that you picked, that's your friend, you feel like, okay, we can do this. We're going to do this together. When you have people that you didn't connect with that are there, that's very isolating. Like, I would have felt better almost like if I had been by myself sometimes, because then you don't feel that rejection from people that are around you. But it definitely, I don't know. It was very emotional when you didn't think that it would, because these are not people that you're typically exposed to. That Survivor, the greatest thing about Survivor is that there's always somebody that you can feel like you can relate to that's there, whether it be, gender, age, where they're from, their education, their religious backgrounds. I mean, I was from New York. You have some people that come out of the Midwest that have never been out of their state or never been out of their town. So I don't want to say there's they're just not educated and worldly about certain things, and so they have like an innocence and wonder that you're exposed to somebody different, but sometimes it's great stories and everybody meshes. And then there's other times where it's like, oh, good Lord, like it causes conflict. And then you put that on top of lack of sleep and being hungry and the elements. It definitely
the emotions are heightened with all of those
Yes.
things. We all like hunger and emotion and feeling lonely and all of those things. It is a recipe for amazing TV, and the audience is obsessed with watching people. And we're still talking about it today.
I mean, yeah, it like strips people down to like the most raw human experience. And you really see like what's on people's insides, I guess. Like when you take away like food and comfort and everything, it's like, it shows what people are really like, and can either be awesome or it can be awful. But
yeah.
Was it easier the second time around to connect with people?
Yes. It was definitely easier. And then the second time I had a totally different motivation for going.
Right. You're like, I'm ready to play this time.
You got voted in by the fans. That's a big deal too.
Yeah.
They had like 100 different people and 20 of you were chosen. I think that's awesome.
It was amazing. Well, that's because my time on my first time on Survivor, I was memorable. I don't have much of a filter on my mouth, so sometimes I have to think. I think you'd fit in
very well with our family. We don't really either.
Yeah, there's a lot of cutting up that goes on, and that's why it was so hard the first time when it's like, wait, you don't like me? What's that? What did I do? Because it's. I'm just me and I'm having fun and I'm silly, but sometimes people don't know how to take that. But the second time I played, I always say the first time I was single, I was from New York, I was in my 20s, I knew it all. The second time I played, I was in my 40s, I was a single mom, divorced, and realized I don't know anything. So the older you get, the more that you don't know, and try to learn something every day. And the one thing that I learned playing the second time was I don't have to be forceful with my opinions and stuff. I can have a little bit of grace, tell people my opinion so I'm not a doormat, but then walk away instead of being like, the loudest one there and just being like, okay, we got to do it this way. I will state why, and then just plant a seed and then be open for conversation. And I think if you take that kind of approach where you don't seem just so aggressive about things, people listen to you more.
Playing too hard, too fast is not always. Yeah, we're
watching Big Brother too. So.
I'm just learning how people are like, ooh, this is all brand new to me. Playing too hard, too fast puts a target on your back. Yeah, and I think that's even just as a human being, like we don't have to say everything, but then but you want to be a good character on a TV show too. Yeah. I mean, I think there's some reality shows, I think people create their characters a little bit more. I would think like with the Housewives, they tend to overdo it. But I think that for some reason, Survivor feels a little bit more pure because it's not. I mean, do you ever have producers talking to you in your ear, telling you what to do? Because I know like on The Bachelor and the Housewives, they do that.
Well, we're different because like the Housewives, I don't know about The Bachelor, but we actually, Survivor still falls under gaming laws. Like, we're not just reality show, we're a game show. So game shows have some different rules that they have to follow because you can't like manipulate. What was it like
because you're winning a prize. Pyramid.
Correct. So like, remember, I think in the 70s or 80s, there was some manipulation with the $20,000 pyramid or something back then. Mm-hmm. And then there became regulations for game shows and about trying to manipulate the ends and stuff.
So the legalities of it, they have to follow. That's an interesting point. I
didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little bit different back then, with that.
Well, I have a question. Did Kel actually eat jerky or did he eat grass? Because Jerry was she was so like, do you know the story on that?
I do. And this is, again, I was not there and anybody can say anything, but I do know Kel, not a character that he played, but his character as to who he is as a human. We were good friends like after Survivor. He actually came to my house and we went out. We weren't dating, but we like hung out a few times. Kel is ex-military or prior military. He is a very proud guy, very like kind of by the book. And I do not believe. And he goes, I would never do that. I would never jeopardize my reputation. His name, his military, he's very proud of that. I just think it was a way for Jerry to just poke a bear and
that's
do
kind
something.
of what I think that's because I'm always trying to look and see what story the editors are telling us. And that was my conclusion that, I mean, he would have had to have snuck it in, right? Or like brought it all the way. Do they like search you and make sure that you don't have stuff? Or, I mean, I've heard stories of people of sneaking things in.
Oh, and they have.
Right? Oh, they no.
they people have, but I don't think that on season 1 that this guy knew. Like,
yeah,
how would you know that you were going to be deprived of food and things to go and bring something?
Right.
You know what I mean? They tell you what you can. You can bring a luxury item that they have to approve. You bring some clothes, this and that. So you do that. How would you even know to bring it?
Right.
You know?
Right. Yeah.
It seems like it'd be too big of a risk. Like, not even worth it. Like,
yes. I mean, you want to win $1 million or have some beef jerky, for a day.
Yeah.
And
it didn't seem like, yeah. I mean, they categorized Jerry as the first like true villain, or somebody said I saw. Is that true? Like they, I mean, is that true?
Yes, I believe so.
Yes, she tried. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, she was trying to take a target off of her back, because I will tell you, any day that you were out there, anybody could have a target on their back. They could be. It doesn't matter if you're strong, if you're nice, if you're whatever. It's just one person can rub you the wrong way. I mean, you could have burped in your sleep last night and offended somebody, and now that's it. You're the one that we want out. But then 6 hours later, somebody spills water, and it's like, oh my gosh, they spilled water. Or the next day, somebody feels sick. So every single day, it doesn't matter where you are in that pecking order, you could do something where they want to get rid of you. And I think Jerry, because she was having some of her own issues, the easiest thing was to now stir the pot, get the attention away from her, which is great. Which is a great strategy, and be like, okay, well, Kel's doing this. We can't have this person over here. And, just any bug that you can put in somebody's ear.
It seemed like you guys were allowed to bring quite a few clothes. Is that true? I mean, it felt like, I mean, like I'm just, because I'm only been invested in season 1 and 2, and I know there's every season has something different. Were you allowed to bring is it a certain amount? Because you're in the Outback, so you have tennis shoes, and because I always keep thinking of like Naked and Afraid, where they drop people literally in naked. And I was like, how does anyone do that?
I don't know. There's not enough of an incentive to me.
Like, talk about the liability there, right?
I don't want bugs in my lady bits. I just
thanks.
Just go over there. Okay, so we were kind of like near the Outback. I guess it's almost like desert like. So at night it got very cold. If you notice, we were all wearing hoodies. But if you also notice, all of us were wearing, or 2 or 3 of us would have the same outfit, because Reebok decided after the first season that they wanted to sponsor us.
Product placement.
So we did. We're all wearing the same shoes. We could pick out a couple different pairs of shoes. So all of us have some of the same ugly shoes.
Sorry, Reebok.
The black hoodie. Well, I loved all my shoes, but there were these they were mustard yellow shoes. And it was just like, ugh, but they were great. But we went and we had, even our buff, it said Reebok on it. So that's why all of us got to pick the same thing. And I think we got to have like 3 pairs of underwear, shorts and pants, socks. I think it was like 3 pairs of socks, a couple pairs of shoes. And then originally I had picked a long sleeve white shirt, but then when they were doing the videos and playing it back, they were like, nope, because it's not good for the camera lighting. So then they took that away and gave us something else. So sometimes it looked like we had a lot more clothing, but they were also
switching
adjusting some of what they had. Right. Because there was a learning curve for them still.
Can I mention something that resonated with me personally? Because you talked about how you thought the water in the river was dirty. Was it disgusting?
It was horrible because I find that there's 2 kinds of people in this world. People that have grown up near lakes and people that have grown up near oceans. Now, I am from Long Island. I trust the ocean. I will swim with sharks. I will sit in salt water. I will do whatever. muddy rivers and lakes and ponds and streams. I want nothing to do with it because I think alligators, I think water moccasins, I think it's, more dangerous. And when we were down in that water, when Mike had killed the pig in this season, he just took the carcass and put it right by our camp water. I'm like, I'm not going in that. I'm like, that's crocodile bait and it just stinks. And then there were like little leeches that would sometimes get on us. And I was just like, nope.
There was no way to actually feel clean, like ever.
I mean, I guess you could if you went to like a bigger puddle, but not, the riverbank and everything. The water there was very little.
Right.
Some of the deeper water farther out, yes, you could feel clean, but right there, no, not at all.
It looked nasty, awful.
Well, it was. And bottom line is we were camping. Okay. I don't care who you are, where you are, when you go camping, you're not coming home smelling like a rose. So,
No.
It's not like I went out, they were calling me a dirty girl. That's right. I was a dirty girl out camping. That's exactly where
no one's going to be
and what it
clean while they're camping.
No.
I mean,
no.
I think it's interesting how, as a viewer, you're watching these different reward challenges, and it's like you guys had the toiletry reward challenge. Was that a good reward to have that soap?
I think because we had a toothbrush, that was good. Because again, if you see the seasons and the episodes, everybody's always picking their teeth and stuff. I mean, was toiletries to me was a luxury, not something that you can keep using that you're going to get a benefit to.
Is it one toothbrush
for everybody?
I think it was one or two. Yes.
What?
And they were going to, yes, exactly. And somebody had a little something going on their lip. And I was like, I'm not like, you don't want to be number one. I think we drew straws or something to go in the pecking order, but it was like, okay, because I was so fond to do it.
That's against the dentists of America. You're not
That's
supposed
like
to
one of the most disgusting things I think I could do in my life is share a toothbrush with anyone.
You wouldn't share it with me?
No. I don't care that you gave me life. I am not sharing a toothbrush with you. Absolutely not.
There are some people that like, because I'm obsessed with brushing my teeth. Okay, like I leave the house to brush my teeth. I come home, I brush my teeth. It's my habit. But out there, I went and I boiled because I was famous for boiling all the water out there. I went and I had this big cup. And after somebody brushed their teeth, I was scooping it in there and swirling it around for like a minute. Yeah. I'm like, because
to kill the bacteria, whatever.
Yes. And then go to number two. And some of them were just like, I don't care. It's like, I don't know you people. I mean, that's like going into a bathroom at a hotel and just picking anybody's thing. Like,
yeah.
If I had to go brush my teeth and I didn't have a toothbrush, or I went to my brother's house or something, I might go and grab it and put it under hot water and brush my teeth because I know him. But
no, the boiling.
I think that's even crossing the line for me. I think I'm a little bit of a germaphobe. Like, I can't even imagine using your toothbrush, Mom. I'd rather use my finger. Like,
yeah, I would boil if I had to. I would boil, but then let's talk about something that was one of the hardest things for me ever watching reality, and why I stopped ever watching like Fear Factor, was the food eating challenges. Mm-hmm. And that's gnarly. I mean, there's so many physical things that I'm like, oh, I could never do that. But the food eating challenge, and especially for you, not eating land animals.
Yeah.
That was hard. And you stuck to of course you get cow brain.
Yeah. Let me tell you, if you watch, this is one of those things where it's like, all right, everything was way too convenient because you had, I think, grasshopper and cow brain. You had the cow stomach, and then there was like
where it landed. You mean?
And yes, so these are all of your options that were on there. And there was like an apple and a Snickers bar. So you had all these things, and of course, for sweet, wonderful, kind Elizabeth, she gets like the Snickers bar or the apple. Yeah. And then Roger, sweet, wonderful Roger, gets the other one. So one gets the apple, and then me, I would have tried the bugs. I would have done anything else, but you're going to put the cow brain, like, really?
The irony.
Is there some like a little a person underneath, like going, "Let's make sure kid when he gets this one."
I mean, when I said like that was my lowest point was when it landed there, and I wasn't going to eat it. So I was in my 20s at that time. I think it was about 26, 27. And I stopped eating red meat when I was 12. So at that point, it had already been 15 years that I had not eaten red meat.
That would have messed up your stomach if you ate it. Like,
yeah. Yes. And then I stopped eating poultry in 1990. So this was now however many years later, like 2005, maybe. I don't know. This is years later. And for it to land there, like I wasn't all of a sudden going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But then when they did the tiebreaker and it was the mangrove worm, I was like, I went from literally my lowest point of the game to my highest point because I did it and I ate a worm. But it's so funny because if you take that episode and that challenge now, and if you had played that now as a new episode, people would be applauding me and thinking I was great for standing up for my beliefs. Whereas back then it was just go with the flow. Why do you want to make a wave? You can't eat a cow brain. Just go ahead and do it. And I mean, I got a lot of flack from people, but now it's like, oh, she's humanitarian. She's kind. It's a totally different perception by the viewers of how that, of how that plays out.
And didn't there, of course, PETA definitely had some things to say about Mike killing the pig, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
yeah.
Did any, so I know I haven't watched the other seasons. Did anybody ever do that again in Survivor history?
I don't think so.
No, nothing that
it's all fish or like crabs or like little things, but never anything as big as a pig.
Yeah, I thought like the psycho killer knife.
He said he was like, I'm in the mood to shed some blood. I was like,
I was just very surprised that you had the young piglet and there was no mama pig anywhere.
I thought it was awful. Yeah.
So he kept talking about it.
That was awful.
Do you think production just conveniently made sure there was a pig nearby?
I have no idea.
You're just trying to dig at the production. You're like, production do this?
I don't like there's like I mean, what Hollywood, man.
I mean, no, the only reason why I say that is because when that happened, it opened up a big can of worms because that became a very publicized news thing. Where this pig come from without the mama? Because we're sitting there and before you go out, we went into the bush, but for any survivor, you always have somebody come in to all the contestants, the tribes, and they sit there and they tell you, okay, what's edible, what's not edible, what's legal, what's not legal. We have all that information at us, and they would say, okay, watch out because if there's hogs, moms are going to be protective of their babies. If there's a kangaroo that somehow gets over here, they're aggressive animals. They're not like the cute little cuddly kangaroo that you see or whatever that's out there, and there's deadly snakes. So this is what you have to do. So when that episode aired, people were like, and even when we were there, it was like, okay, well, if there's a baby pig, where's the mama pig? Because that's what they told you. And in your information, your safety meeting, so to speak, that if there's a baby, there should be a mommy. Well,
so people were questioning it.
Yes. And then especially when it aired in PETA, and it's like, okay, well, what, where'd it come from?
Right. And then, I mean, you did struggle with the chickens and all that, which made for, it was, you would leave camp and,
well,
I'm curious if the editing portrayed it, the way we ended up seeing it is the way it happened. Do you feel it was a fair portrayal of exactly what happened?
The chicken thing. And the irony is, again, I was in charge of that puzzle and I told them how to do the puzzle when they won the chicken. If you go back and if you watch, because I do puzzles very well. So I sat there and I did that. I will say this about Survivor. Everything that I do and everybody else does. We all did it. We all said it. It was all there. It may not always be in the exact context or the editing of how and when is said. I mean, people can follow me around. A news camera can follow me around all day, and they can see that I'm Susie Homemaker and I'm baking brownies and I drive my kids to school and I'm tucking them into bed and going to football practice, having a great time. But I just washed my kitchen floor and my son comes walking in from mowing the lawn and gets grass on my floor. I go, what the hell are you doing? I just cleaned that. Well, that's what they're going to show. They're not going to show. Did I do and say that? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. But did I also do everything else for the other 9 hours of the day? Absolutely. But, once they start editing that first show and that first episode, they kind of stick to that kind of a storyline, and it's hard to change, right. who might be the villain, who might be the good girl, who might be, whatever.
Right. No, and you find, and sometimes you'll see, because you are kind of at the mercy of the producers, the editors, the storytellers, what they pick and choose is what they're going to focus on, what's an A storyline, a B storyline. Right. And some people, and I also notice sometimes when you get to the tribal council that I sometimes feel like, wow, that came out of left field. I didn't have any clue because they didn't feature the strategy or what people were doing, and all of a sudden this happens, and it was like, and I don't know if that's just something that because it was 24 years or 23 years ago, but or if they try to show a little bit more of that now. I mean, I'm just, because it's all a new thing, everybody's learning this whole new show and how to tell that story. So I think it's interesting when I'm just, my own curiosity is like, what did they leave out? What did the editor not show us? What shot did they add in there to heighten that emotion that's happening right there?
Well, when you think about the first, probably 10 years or so, one episode was a 3-day period, because you had your challenge, your award challenge, you had your immunity challenge, and then you also have your tribal council. So those were your big things. So if you have 2 different tribes, okay, each tribe has at least 2 cameras going on. So you have a minimum of 3 days with 4 cameras just at camp that have been running simultaneously for 72 hours. And everything's got to get broken down to a 40-minute episode, right? When you take out the credits and you take out the commercials. So there is a lot that you don't see.
Right.
And there is a lot of boredom out there also. But yeah, that's why they have a lot to work with to not manipulate their storyline, but
they create characters.
Yes.
I've always said that this is a manipulative art form. And because when you analyze, there's shots, there's close-ups, there's music that they're letting the audience know that this is funny, or they literally in the season 1 they would put kind of villain music when Richard was on, and they put kind of happy-go-lucky when somebody else was, to let us know how to feel. So it is a manipulative art form. It's but then let me ask you, you mentioned tribal council. That's an epic scene. Like, where
I think season 2 is one of the coolest tribal councils, because you're on top of that big rock formation right over a cliff.
Yeah,
like that's nuts.
It looked like it was a very far hike. Was it every time?
Oh my God, that walk. So now in more recent seasons, they'll help you get to tribal council.
Right. Kelly was saying they like boated you in like 31 or something. Or
yes. Because you just can't. This one, we were walking. And we're walking carrying this ginormous torch, and you're walking up those rocks. If you look at the time of day when we left, it was still a full sun. When we were getting to tribal council, you can see the sun is set, it's dark, it's ready for the fire, because we were literally walking the whole time. I mean, I'm surprised none of us broke our neck
it's
there.
Very dangerous to hike over rocks like that. That's one of the most dangerous things for people to do.
Absolutely. And we're not wearing, rock climbing shoes. We're wearing running shoes.
And you go back in the dark.
We went back in the dark. And then when we would leave tribal, they drove us to a certain place.
Oh, okay.
But it's kind of like they make you walk there for 2 hours. So you're thinking about things, but you can't talk to each other because they don't have the microphones like right there.
You have to be in complete silence, or can you talk about like non-game related?
Nope. You're not talking about anything. Nope.
I don't think that'd be possible for me.
Trust CJ, it was very hard for me. Very hard. But you just keep thinking, this could be $1 million. This could be $1 million. Right. You sing that song in your head, and then it's like, okay, maybe I can do this. But even now when we were boating in the later seasons, we'd be on the boat and you have your little handler person, and it's like, shh, nobody can say anything. And it's like in the we'd go in like a covered car getting, driven off the boat to wherever we had to go sometimes. And it's like, you had your little babysitters there and you just sat there, and it was just like, nothing said.
That's the hardest thing when you have people telling you, it's like, I need to use the restroom. And they're like, you can't. I'm like, I'm going.
And you know what? That's funny that you say that, because that happened to me not once, but both seasons.
Really?
Because
they're like, you can't. No.
the very first episode. So now you understand, like we weren't eating a lot of food, and I think it was when Mike killed the pig. It's like that's when I had to poop, and they had happened to be interviewing me, and then I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I've got to go. They're like, Kimmi, you can't go. We're talking. I'm like, listen, I have not gone in 11 days. Yeah. I got to go. I'm like, I like literally, like, I got to cry, and I'm going running. And thank God, finally it's like, okay, I went to the bathroom. But now, because we signed our life away before we went, I'm in this massive panic. I was in my 20s then, and, now I don't care. Everybody poops. But I'm sitting there when they're going to air it. I'm like, oh my God, are they going to show me running to the bathroom because I had to poop? Like, this is what goes on in my head, because I was mortified. Like, my stomach, it's like I had to go. And they're like, we're just going to have to finish this. I'm like, nope.
11 days is too long. If you're going, you're going.
Yes, it probably was like the better than an orgasm on that.
Yeah. In that situation, I will agree.
There's nothing.
I can only imagine.
But like, because it just happens when you're out in the, I was on the Grand Canyon for many, and it was like, that was my biggest fear, not being able. And it was like, yes, every day. That was the highlight of the day. And they featured it on season 1 with,
Sean. He was like, I went to the bathroom in 14 days and I finally had a bowel movement. And everyone was like, yeah, go Sean.
You had every right to think that they were going to do it. In fact, as you're talking, I was like, it's like they didn't even make it. They haven't even shown your toilet, whatever you guys are using for that. They showed it in the season 1. So I'm surprised they didn't use it. So yeah.
I mean, and that, again, that's a big difference between my first season I played, which is season 2, and season 31. So we were in the Outback. We had to kind of dig a hole, and that was going to be our toilet area. I mean, I guess everybody thought that we were going to be eating and pooping every day. Never happened. Well, then by the time we got to Cambodia, most of the other seasons had been on ocean. So now when we were doing that handbook, prior to us going with our safety meeting, it's called an aqua dump. And you had to, as a tribe, decide what part of the ocean that your camp, butts up against. That's where you're going to go to the bathroom.
In the ocean?
In the ocean. That's,
they say the solution to pollution is dilution. Well, that's brilliant. Well, that's my husband was a professional river guide, and that's what they would say if you don't. But that's for usually, though. Because in the first season they were digging holes as well to bury it. Interesting. But you guys picked the ocean. Interesting.
But that I guess the evolution of 30 seasons, they figured out which was the most clean and hygienic, and then you're not risking people walking into it. So, I mean, you go out there into that ocean and it's like everybody's on the beach. It's not like everyone's watching you, but they know what you're doing.
Interesting.
Because you can pee anywhere in the ocean. And I mean, if you peed once a day out there, that's a lot. And if you pooped twice while you were out there the whole time, that's a lot.
That's interesting. So your calories really are that low that your body's using everything that you're ingesting. Yeah.
Everything.
Wow.
Everything. And then when we won a reward challenge, when we were out on the tuk-tuk, Kelly Wigglesworth was on that with us. We got food and we were eating. And then again, it was like, oh my God, I got to go. And I had the microphone up on me and stuff. And I'm like, take this off. They're like, Kimmi, we're going to be wrapping up in about 10. I'm like, I don't have 10 minutes. I don't. Like, my eyes were crying. I'm like, I've got to go. And then all of a sudden, like, I'm running out in the water. It was like low tide. So you're only in like 2 or 3 feet of water and you're trying to squat and go to the bathroom. And everybody knows what you're doing. And then next thing you know, it started hitting everybody else that was there that won the food reward because we hadn't eaten anything. And now everybody's like, get this microphone off of me. Otherwise it's going in the water. It's you have 30 seconds. Like, take it off now or I'm taking off my shirt. My titties will be flying. Just please just go. It's that serious. Like, when you got that urge, it's whoo.
That is amazing. And actually, Kelly, and
that's amazing.
No, it's an amazing story because it's like, your body is being deprived of something. And as soon as it's like, just like literally like plugging in the electricity, getting stimulated. But Kelly was saying, like, and it sounds pretty similar in the first season and similar to the second season. She said, we really didn't have that much. She said by season 31, she said, we had an abundance of fruit. And she thought that she's like, the fruit was rotting. Not everybody was eating. And it was a completely different experience. Like the hunger thing, she said in the first season was so bad that people weren't like, they were concerned for people's health and just being able to do the challenges.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because you think that there's an abundance with food. But I didn't have rice until we merged on the second season because you guys didn't win that bag. We didn't win the bag, but we were able to get, you can get all that food and supplies off the boat. Yeah, that's great. You're out in Cambodia where it's 100 degrees on a beach. So all those bananas that you brought that got bruised and damaged, they sit in your counter for a week and they turn brown. What do you think at an accelerated rate in the hot sun and everything? I mean, some of the stuff was fermenting. We're like, well, we could get drunk on this, because it's like a mango. And I do not like mangoes. And somebody grabbed a bunch of mangoes. And I remember on like day 3 or 4, they're coming over with a tray. They're like, here's a mango. And I'm like, and I'm just trying to get this stupid mango down because I needed it.
Is there, we said that, we asked Kelly the same thing. How long has it been? She said to this day, it's hard to eat rice. Is there a food item that's difficult for you to eat today?
Right. Rice makes me smile. Oh. I like rice. So
you're like, good. It's as long as it's not pig.
Yeah. As long as it's not pig. But snails, like when we were in Cambodia, I found my best thing was to, like I said, give my opinion on something. And then I went over and I'd go fishing or snailing, whatever. And I would always come back. Like, I would not come back until I found some snails, and I could be out there forever. And when you got a snail, you boil the snail. There's no garlic. There's no butter. You put a little bit of salt water in there, but you can't do too much because, too much salt water is not good for you. You actually dehydrate. So you get the snail and you don't want to chew it because you boil it, it's rubber, and you're just knocking it out and it comes out in this big lump. And it got to a point where not even chewing it, just taking it and swallowing it. So I would never order escargot. Not that I think that I ever would, but that's probably the only thing.
Can I ask you about the famous argument with Alicia? Thank you all for joining us on the Bye Bitches podcast. And that was part 1 of Kimmi Kappenberg. Head over to our Patreon to hear part 2 and a lot more tea. Thank you, Kimmi, so much for being here. And CG, please follow, rate, and review. It really helps the podcast. And also, if you head over to Patreon, that really supports us as well. You can follow CG at CG Mirror. And I am the Melinda Clark at the Melinda Clark. Those are both on TikTok and Instagram. Okay, bye, bitches.